All right, good afternoon, everyone. We still have people joining, so we're going to give it about 30 more seconds. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. All right, happy Monday, everyone. We still have people joining, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's summit on race, identity, and belonging in the workplace, hosted by two amazing organizations, America's Promise Alliance and Grads for Life. I'm Raquel Crutcher. I'll be your MC and human clock for today's event, which means you are all stuck with me for the next 3 hours. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a Black woman, I'm a Memphian, and I'm a change agent. Feel free to drop where everyone is tuned in from in the chat. Would love to see. I'm currently sitting in my parents' kitchen. I'm in front of their TV and kitchen table with my favorite pair of glasses on. So with my family at home and over food is where I first learned the importance of my identity and belonging. So I'm very happy to be here and with you all right now. Today, we're going to have a series of conversations about the topic of belonging in the workplace. Why are identities important? Why does workplace belonging matter? What strategies can be implemented to cultivate it? And how can employers cultivate real, lasting, and proactive change so employees can bring their whole selves to work? In particular, we'll be amplifying the voices of young, early career workers who are so often included for the photo ops and the surface level conversations, but excluded from decision making, specifically around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before we dive in, I want to take a quick moment to say thank you to our partners at AT&T, whose generous support has made this event possible. I also want to thank the Executive Planning Committee for this event, the 4 young early career workers themselves who served as core planners and advisors as this event was put together. So thank you to Vincent Folks, Austin Chapa, Elijah Emmanuel Lewis, and Alonzo Jordan. And also thank you to America's Promise Alliance and Grads for Life for having me. Some quick housekeeping items. Throughout the event, we will have live interpreters in both Spanish and American Sign Language, or ASL. The ASL interpreter will be visible automatically for all attendees and speakers. They will appear on your screen just like one of the speakers. And for the Spanish translation, please click on the interpretation button on the Zoom menu bar and select Spanish to start listening. If you have any questions at all for our panelists in any of today's sessions, please, please, please feel free to drop those questions in the chat. We love questions, we love comments. We do have limited time, but we will do our best to get to at least a couple audience questions in each session today. Now, if you have any tech-related questions, or if at any point you are experiencing any difficulties navigating the platform, please direct any tech-related questions to the Matchbox support staff in the chat. Now, before I hand it over to Khalil for our first plenary session, I want to take 2 minutes for a quick icebreaker. And if you know me, you know I have to do a quick icebreaker, but I want to get us all thinking about our own work experiences. The question we'd like you all to answer is, what is one thing that makes you feel joy at work? You can scan the QR code that just popped up on the screen, or you can click the link in the chat and enter your response. Feel free to draw a picture, use words, use symbols, dots, squares, circles, whatever you want to do to illustrate what makes you feel joy at work, and get creative, please. In the meantime, I want to start. Mine is music. I love me some Beyonce. Specifically, since I'm at home, I love having music to listen to. Oh, nice. We have community. I would love to know where your community is. We have the people I work with. I love that. We have people from California in, Indianapolis, Raleigh, North Carolina. My team, music. I would love to know who you like to listen to. There seems to be a theme of people. So I'm so happy that we're all together today. Learning, connection, being welcomed. I'm happy you're here today because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about Seeing others smiling, I love that. Coworkers again, feeling welcome, connection, food. I'm with you on food. I love to hear what you love in particular to eat at work. Nice. Yeah. So there does seem to be a theme of coworkers, of colleagues, of people that you work with. I'm really happy that everyone who said that is here today, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. I want to thank everyone for that. So many people put music, and if you know me, you know I love music. So I love, love, love that we have more music lovers in here. Joy is always a great way to start the conversation. So I appreciate you all for meeting me there to begin today's summit. I want to dive right into our first session. And this first session is on why belonging and identity matters. This conversation is going to be moderated by the one and only Khalil Green, who will come on right after this short video clip.
To be able to bring my whole self to work, for me, it looks like not having to come to work and be someone I'm not. I love that I can come to work every day and sit down and joke with my coworkers. It's very important to just be personable and be yourself with people from the jump, and just to be able to have an environment where you can be yourself, so that people can get to know you and know the real you right off the bat.
I feel like I should be able to interact and say things with moderation, of course, but say like what I want to say freely and not feel like I am hindered, or I can't say, or I can't voice my opinion based off something, based off race, based off age. I feel like I should be free to allow to put input into conversations.
Being able to bring my whole self to work means that I can be honest about how my day has been. So just being able to be honest about my emotions and how my day was, while still being professional and respectful of everyone, is being able to bring my whole self to work.
My advice to employers, to help young people feel inclusive or belonged or involved, will probably be, just kind of try to get into their shoes, try to see and try to adapt to the things that they like and the things that they're striving for. So just things like that, be able to have an open mind, have an open heart to the things that younger people are actually interested in.
Establishing an inclusive environment early on is extremely important, because that first impression is what's going to carry on while we work. So I feel like it's just very important to just be kind and be patient with us. We're learning, and just give us time to start off.
So if you want your employees to stay with you and work for you, and if you want your company to succeed, it's really important that you make sure that your employees feel like they belong.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of the very timely and very important conversation that we're going to have today. So my name is Khalil Green, and I'm honored to be the moderator for this conversation. To share a little bit about me, I'm a senior at Yale studying the history of social change and social movements. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a Black male, 21 years old, wearing a gray sweater in my dorm. I'm also an online educator with almost 500,000 followers across my TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn platforms, and I share information about diverse history, culture, and politics. The New York Times has even covered me for my digital education work. So we're going to start off today's summit with a conversation about belonging and identity and why this is so important in the workplace. As we just saw from this video, belonging might mean different things to different people, but one thing is true for all of us. Feeling like we belong is an important part of our experiences at work and our ability to show up as our full selves. I want to point out that this opening plenary panel, are all young people or people who are early in our careers. And in this conversation, we're intentionally shining a light on the experiences of young people of color, because we are so often left out of conversation and we rarely have a seat at the decision-making table when it comes to employers, approaches to creating diverse, inclusive work environments, and so many other things. So remember, we have a Q&A portion at the end of the session. Feel free to put your audience questions in the panel in the Q&A box, not in the chat. If you have any questions about this, you can put those questions about the technical aspects in the chat. But remember, put the Q&A questions in the Q&A box. So I'm going to kick off our discussion by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves and share their pronouns, a physical description, and a little bit about who they are, where they're from, and the kind of work that they do. We're going to start with Maya, then we're going to go to Desmond, then Octaz, then Alondra, and then Simon. So starting off with Maya.
Hi, Khalil. How are you doing? I'm Maya James. I'm an artist and activist, and I'm a certified teaching artist for the K-LISA Education for the Arts program with Kalamazoo Public Schools, as well as a youth consultant for the YES program. I'm 23 years old. I'm a biracial Black woman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm in my white room art studio with my awesome green blazer, and I'm so excited for today. Thank you so much.
Desmond.
Hi, everyone. My name is Desmond Kane. I'm an African-American male, a recent graduate from Georgetown University. I have braids in my hair. I'm sitting in my bedroom. I have a white shirt on. And I now work as a consultant. I work as a program administrator in a consulting firm here in Chicago.
Thank you so much. We have Octaz go next.
Hi, everybody. My name's Octaz Khan. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm 21 years old. I am South Asian. I am Indian to be specific. So I'm an international student at Western Michigan University. I'm studying behavioral sciences, so that's psychology, and I have a minor in statistics. I work on campus at Western Michigan University as a direct support professional for the Center for Disability Services. And I'm also a student fundraiser for the university. I have brown skin, I'm wearing glasses, I'm wearing a maroon polo, and I'm sitting in my apartment that has white walls and some pictures on the walls. Yeah, go Broncos. Thank you.
Thank you. Alondra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alonzo Jordan. I am 17 years old. I am a senior at Houston County High School. I am wearing a tan blouse. I have short, dark brown hair. And I work at Spherion Staffing, and it is where we give jobs to people who have recently been unemployed because of COVID. That's been our main focus right now, and we're just trying to get people motivated to get back out there and hopefully make money to keep their families safe and supplied with everything they need.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, we're going to go with Simon.
Hi, my name is Simon Rogers. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. My pronouns are he, him, his also. I'm an African-American male. I study mechanical engineering and computer science at the University of Tennessee. And I'm the West Tennessee community organizer for the Equity Alliance. What we basically do is try to teach more Black people in West Tennessee more about state politics, I should say. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you so much for those introductions. So we're going to start off with our first question, which I'm going to ask each panelist to answer. We're going to go in reverse order. So starting with Simon, and that question is, what does it mean to you to feel like you belong in the workplace?
To feel like I belong in the workplace, I would say I've worked in companies since I was probably about 16 years old, from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses. I would say the most thing that's made me comfortable living in or being in the workplace is just community involvement and just being able to be involved in decisions making throughout the company. So say, for example, I recently worked for AT&T a few years ago. And what I was able to do is be able to help the community in small business form, where I was able to see what ways I could help them in terms of building their business or in terms of finding the different ways that can help them in the company. So just being given the power to make decisions in the company kind of made me more comfortable in being in the company. So it's more the comfort, I would say, that kind of helps me feel comfortable in the workplace.
Got it. So the comfort, and then also that aspect of being able to have your opinions be heard, having that power to feel like you're heard in any decision. Thank you for that. Next, we're going to go on to Alondra.
Hi, I agree with Simon as far as, community and being involved and being able to voice your opinion on anything or any kind of topic. I also believe that belonging in a workplace, me going there knowing like I have a purpose, like me not going there just because it's a regular job not looking for a paycheck. I'm going because I want to make a difference in the place that I am now. And by having a community, me not having to worry about pretending to be somebody I'm not, me not holding back anything, and me embracing every single part of myself and people allowing that, that really means a lot to me in a workplace.
Thank you for that. We're gonna go on to Octaz.
Being able to feel like I belong at work really just means that I feel that I can be honest over there. Respect for feedback is a big thing. If I have something that I give feedback on, I want to be able to feel like that my supervisor heard me and they actually did something about it instead of just shoving it aside. Besides that, coworkers and community is a big thing, as Simon and Alondra both said. And lastly, just having empathy or working in an environment that has a lot of empathy is really important, because I cannot understand everybody's experiences and everybody will not be able to understand my experiences, but at least being able to try to put yourself in other people's shoes, whether it be your supervisors, your coworkers, and just understanding where you're trying to come from, that makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. Next, we're gonna move on to Desmond.
Yes, I echo everything that everyone said already. And a couple of things that I think that makes me feel belonged in the workspace is just being respected. I think being respected as a human, we all are human. We all go through similar things that we don't necessarily talk about. And I think being able to take care of one's mental health, creating policies that take care of one's mental health in the workspace makes me feel belong. Being able to come into space, like those echoed and said, to be able to share my thoughts and share my feelings, if those be respected. I think are some few examples of how I just feel belonged in a workplace.
Thank you. And last, we're gonna go to Maya.
Okay, well, I think that everyone made awesome points. I definitely think good communication is a really big part of belonging at work. Feeling empowered by my management, I think, is a really big one. Every time I've felt empowered and able to learn and educate and build and share with the people that I'm working with, I've always felt like I was excited to go to work, and it wasn't necessarily a burden the way that like a lot of people feel like going into work can be. And then also just like feeling unburdened by biases and just being there for the craft itself, especially with education, with youth and around the arts. It's really awesome to just be able to get lost in that creative process.
Yeah, thank you. So some of the words that resonate with me are creativity, empathy, empowerment, respect, community. And I think all of those are really important concepts and ideas for any workplace, especially one with young, diverse people in it. The next few questions I'm going to ask, I'm going to pose to the panel, and anyone can jump in. Feel free to just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Or if we don't have someone immediately, then I might just cold call just to see, because I think all of these questions you guys can probably resonate and have important ideas and perspectives on. So the first question I'm going to start out with is, what are the most important pieces of your identity, and how does that show up in who you are at work? Looks like Octaz has an answer.
So I am a non-citizen of the United States. I'm an international student. I'm from India, so that's a really big part of my identity. And that shows up at the workplace because although I do consider myself to be a globalized person, I made sure growing up that I educated myself on issues and the cultural norms of countries all over the world. But for the most part, I did grow up in another country for 18 years of my life, and then I just came here for school. So many times, especially when it comes to like references or inside jokes or this and that, for something as simple as when we were playing catchphrase at work as an icebreaker, I might not be able to perform like as well as other Americans because I did not grow up here. So then it just ties back to empathy and being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So as an American employee at the workplace, you might want to think about if you were to go and work in another country like China, how would you want the employers over there treat you? And then maybe treat your international employees with that same level of understanding and respect and care as you might want and need and expect from employers in other countries if you were to go there and work.
Thank you. I think that imagery of just imagining yourself in a different country is just so powerful and helps put those ideas in perspectives for a lot of people. Alondra, you also have an answer.
Yes, I kind of agree in a way. I am a Black woman, so when I walk into a workplace, I'm very intelligent, I've always, worked on my intelligence. I did dual enrollment classes. I made good grades, but, I've been in workplaces where, it's not enough, or the way that I speak or the way I'm passionate about certain things, it can be intimidating to other people. And they honestly wouldn't want anything to do with me. I've been in places where I've been denied jobs just because I had all the qualifications. It was just the color of my skin or my attitude or how dramatic or passionate I was. It was just too much for people to handle. And that's just the reality of, it's like no matter how far you get in your education or try to, excel with all the resource that you have given to you, there's always going to be setbacks, but I'm not going to let that stop me from where I'm going. But it's definitely a struggle.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's like that phrase where it says you have to work twice as hard just to get half back. And I think that resonates for a lot of people in the workplace, especially as your identities intersect in any environment that you're at. I'm going to move on to the second question that we have that anyone can raise their hand for to participate in. That question is, can you share anything or any example of something that an employer has done to make you feel included or like you belong, specifically from your life? We're going to start with Simon.
So one thing my company does, or my job does, allows me to feel comfortable in my own setting, I should say, is being able to go to outside events with the company. So say, for example, going out to barbecue or a bowling alley, just hang out outside of the company to kind of get a chance to be comfortable with the people that you work with. So with my previous company, I worked at a previous job with T-Mobile where I was able to kind of go outside of my job with my coworkers and be able to learn more about them to see where I can develop myself into other sides of my business or learn more about the company in just general, learning how I can deviate through different problems or just figuring out how to work the company, basically, I should say. So being able to be included in things, but being able to be included in things outside of the company too helps a lot.
Okay, that's a great one. We're gonna go on to Desmond.
Yeah, I remember one of the times me and my mother got into a big argument, and right after I got into the big argument with my mom, I had a meeting with one of my managers, and I got on the meeting, and she could tell that my body language was kind of off, and I wasn't as enthusiastic as I was in our normal meeting. So she asked me what was wrong, and it was after I told her, I was like, "Oh my, I just got into an argument with my mom. Everything is okay." What made me feel belonged is the fact that she asked. That I want to talk about it. And she was kind of not necessarily pushy about it, but it seemed like she was pretty genuine about who I was and what I was going through, what was going on with me. So that was one of the things that made me feel kind of belong. Just the sense that someone else cared about what was going on in my life, and we talked about something other than just work.
Yeah, it goes back to this recurring idea of empathy being at the root of belonging and inclusion in a lot of different ways. I'm going to move on to the third question that we have, which is, what are red flags for you in terms of workplace belonging? What is a signal for you that a workplace isn't a supportive environment for you? Looks like Octaz has an answer.
One thing that I would say to watch out for is formation of cliques. That's very real. It happens everywhere, not just even at the workplace, just in life in general. So if that's something that's just like a part of the culture at that workplace, there are a bunch of different cliques that everybody split into, and everybody's really discouraging and judgmental of people who are not in their cliques. That's a big red flag. Whatever the criteria might be to get into that clique, it might be financial, based on race, gender, intelligence, anything, or even how you dress. That's definitely a big red flag. I don't think there should be cliques at work. Everybody should feel like they are on the same level working with each other.
I agree. I think when you form cliques, that's pretty much the opposite, right? Like it's the idea of exclusion as opposed to inclusion. Um, I'm going to see if Maya, do you have an answer for this one as well? Looks like you do.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when your management or supervisors when they close themselves off to opportunities for learning, especially when it comes to cultural differences. So if you feel like you can't explain why having your natural hair down for work is something that's important to you, or why other things like whether it's religious or cultural or ethnically, why these things are important to you, when the opportunities for learning aren't there, that kind of can affect like how I feel comfortable in a workplace for sure.
Yes, thank you for that. I think so many things that might not necessarily appear as important for other people are important for ourselves based on the history of our identities or where we come from. So I think that's a really, really important point. That you have to have this space for people to educate and teach about why things matter to them in this space of diversity and belonging. I'm going to move on to Desmond.
Yeah, one of the biggest red flags for me is being micromanaged. I think a lot of times in the workplace, I work with people that conflate micromanaging with being supportive or being like, oh, I just want to make sure everything is okay and everything is good. But I do believe in some sense of autonomy over my own position or over my own kind of job. And I think being micromanaged kind of like disrupts that kind of self autonomy that I'm trying to have, which makes me feel belonged in the workspace. That I don't want to feel that every move that I make is being watched, or everything that I make is have to be like kind of supervised. So yeah.
Yeah, nobody likes a micromanager. I'm sure everyone on the audience and on the panel can agree with that. And it also contributes to this exclusive workplace to feel like you're not trusted enough to get your work done and kind of have someone hawking over you. So I'm going to ask another question before audience Q&A. And once again, a reminder, anyone in the audience, if you have a question you'd like to pose to the panel, we're going to jump into that very soon. You can just put it in the Q&A box, which I believe should appear at the bottom of your screen. If not, feel free to ask in the chat where you can find that Q&A box to put your questions. So this question that I have, once again, anyone can either raise your hand physically or use the raise hand function. Can you talk about this notion of professionalism, right? Like young people seem to be redefining this term, but I want to ask and pose to all of you guys, how do you view professionalism? How does that come up in your life and what are your thoughts on it? It looks like Simon has an answer.
I would say this is probably one of my favorite parts. I would say professionalism is pretty much how I choose a job. Like, how do you come to the job that you go to every day is what I look at as professional. No matter if you're a construction worker or you're a person in a suit, if you come to work ready to work, I think that's as professional as you could be. And in some jobs, I know professionalism is, coming to the job the way you're supposed to come. But I feel like coming to the job the way you believe is the best way to do it is the best way to come to the job, because the more confident you are in yourself, the more things you can get accomplished. And the more things you can get accomplished, the better you can help the company. So I feel like confidence is professionalism, I should say.
Confidence. I really like that idea. Does anyone else have any ideas? Looks like Maya had one. Maya, raise your hand.
Just to bounce off of what Simon said, being healthy and feeling like you are up to the task and waking up with energy and feeling like confident in your job, I feel like that's really important as well. So if you even are mentally feeling like you're not very healthy or that something about the job is like a detriment to your mental health, I feel like that could lead to unprofessionalism. And I think it's just a natural thing that happens.
Totally agree with that. Does anyone else want to add anything to this? Looks like Octaz.
I totally agree with Maya about the health thing. If some jobs sometimes just make it so detrimental on your mental health, and that's not professional at all. Something else I'd like to add is respect for the job, for the people that you're working with, and for yourself. It's so important at the workplace to have respect. I feel like that's kind of the fundamental for professionalism. If you don't respect what you do, the people you work with, or yourself at that job as a contributing employee, I don't think there's going to be a way to be professional.
Got it. I agree with that. Okay, so we're gonna jump into one last question for everyone, and then we're gonna get into the audience Q&A. And for this question, we're gonna go in the order of Alondra, Maya, Desmond, Octaz, then Simon. And that final question for everyone is, as the American workplace continues to evolve, many employers have demonstrated a growing desire to make inclusion and belonging a priority. So can each of you share one specific piece of advice for employers who all want their employees, particularly young employees and employees of color, to feel like they belong? Just one piece of advice. I can give it a moment or two, but Alondra, whenever you're ready, feel free to start.
My piece of advice would be to be open-minded on all aspects, as far as religion, sexuality, race, habits, culture. Just, I wouldn't necessarily say be prepared for it for everything, but I would say allow an environment to be free. I wouldn't, try to make it more open, like, you know what I mean, as far as like allowing everyone to talk, allowing everyone to be themselves, to dress like themselves, to eat what they want to eat, to style their hair how they want to style their hair. So I feel like the original thought of like what a workplace is supposed to look like, or what professionalism or how structure is supposed to be, I feel like that should just not necessarily be neglected, but it definitely should be brought up to date now that everyone is more secure in their cultures and they don't want to change for anyone else and they don't expect anyone to change for them.
Thank you so much. We're going to go on to Maya.
I completely agree, Alondra. And I would add also, in terms of, diversity and inclusion and belonging, take action first. Don't advertise it. Don't write it down. Don't make it a plan. Do it on a one-on-one level. Check in with your employees and see how comfortable they are and see if, everything is working smoothly. If they need anything, like you never know the difference between asking someone if they're comfortable and then just like assuming that they are. And unconscious biases affect how you perceive that as well. So I would definitely say before you make a plan or get a grant or do a proposal, take action first with your one-on-one employees and make sure they're okay.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go on to Desmond.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things, one of the bigger pieces of advice I can give is to never assume. I think it's okay to ask questions. I think the worst thing you could do is assume. Never assume that the person may take what you say as a joke. Never assume but never assume anything. I just think that everyone goes through so much in their life, and I don't think no one knows what the next person goes through. And I don't think there's no room for any assumptions. Communication is the biggest thing that you can do. Yeah.
Sounds good. We're going to go on to Octaz and then Simon.
I would say using statistics is a big thing that companies can do. Like put your money towards using statisticians or running tests, seeing what has worked, what hasn't worked. Was there any sort of change that you guys implied and suddenly people of color or more women started joining your workforce or not? Was there something that you guys did that made people quit? So just what kind of events that you're holding that is bringing people in, what kind of conversations you're having, and stuff like that. So just looking at data, running numbers, and then coming up with best strategies and feedback, just using feedback into those statistics that you guys are running. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I have.
Thank you. And then lastly, Simon.
I would say my biggest tip is understanding. Like understanding that even in this conversation itself, people come from very different backgrounds, people come from very different aspects of life. So the way you may look at something may be completely different than the way someone else looks at something. And you may think it's completely normal to you because you were just trained to believe that's common sense. So understanding that someone else may believe that's different on their aspect is something you have to learn. Okay, this is not a confrontation, it's just viewing something differently. It's just us understanding, hey, we're different, we were raised differently, but we can still get this together. So think that would be the best thing I would say. Understand how you can work together as a team.
Wow, I love those pieces of advice. I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience can take away something from that. So now we're going to jump into our audience Q&A. So I'll read the question, then I might just start off with one of you guys that I think will have a good answer or some insights for that question. But from there, no more raise hands or anything. Just feel free to jump in if there's an idea or if you want to play off of each other's comments or anything that you say. So first, I'm going to start with this question that I saw. It says, how do you find belonging in a virtual work environment? My work has been mostly remote for the last 3 years, and I don't experience the same workplace environment as people who work in person. Any advice? So I'm going to start off with Maya, if you have any thoughts about that. And if anyone else wants to jump in, feel free to just riff off of that.
Can you repeat that one more time? That was a pretty long question.
Yeah, so sorry, the essence of the question is, how do you find belonging in a virtual work environment, especially one where it's very different from in person?
I feel like when I was working in a virtual environment, I feel like it was like a lot more understanding. Like I felt like there was a little bit more like belonging, but that also could have been like the place that I was working. But I feel like working in a virtual environment is just like the biggest difficulty is just making sure everybody's schedule is comfortable and making sure that everybody's being accommodated to, because you never know, people have children, people have, you know, different things going on, whether there's a landlord in your living room fixing something and you can't talk because there's hammering going on in the background, or whether you don't have access to Wi-Fi and you don't have access to like the things that you need for a virtual environment. I think that belonging starts there, kind of being accommodating to what people need, and also assessing what those needs might be based on where they are.
Anyone else want to share thoughts or jump off of that? If not, or it looks like Simon, you can go ahead.
I was going to say, just the way I would look at it is in the virtual like work environment, I would say just like any other virtual or digital environment. Say, for example, you're playing video games with a friend or even just FaceTiming a friend. It's learning how to find ways to communicate with each other, or at least have fun with each other, I should say. So say me and my friends really don't get to see each other. Some of us are around the country, some of us are in different countries, but sometimes we get to come together even on the weekend just to play Fortnite or Call of Duty, just to hang out. In this same environment, I feel like the people that we're around each together would be also a group of people that would like to hang out outside of this group. It would be something that you would find that you would all love to do and still find a way that you could do it, I should say.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for the next question, just a heads up, I'll probably go to Desmond at the onset. So the question is, it says, how do you strike a balance between being able to bring your whole self to work and also not making work your whole life? At times, it can feel like young people are better at setting boundaries, but it can make it harder to build relationships within the workplace.
Yeah, I also think that's something sometimes you just have to accept. I think being in a workplace, you have to allow people to get comfortable in that space. You have to allow people to come into that space bring as much as they want into that space as they want, much of themselves into that space as they want. And I don't think there should be like a time limit on when that person should be like, oh, okay, this is when I want to become a little more comfortable with the work environment. I think that person should have that complete autonomy over that sense of self within the workplace. Yeah.
Anyone want to jump off of that?
I actually have something to add to that, which is always ask your employer for a workplace description of what your job duties are. It's not wrong to ask for it. It's not anything that's not a part of your employment. Never feel afraid to ask your supervisor or your manager, what is my job description? What are my duties? And do I have to be available at these times? If they don't know, then ask them to write something up. It would take like, 30 minutes to figure out, okay, this is what I want my employee to be doing. So never feel afraid to set boundaries by asking, what are my work duties and what am I supposed to be doing when I'm here?
Going off of that, I feel like it's a matter of choice. A person gets to decide if they want to make their whole life about their work or not, because for some people, their life is about all about their work. Like somebody might be the owner of a nonprofit, and their whole life is just about that, just bettering some cause that they're passionate about. As opposed to some people might just be going to a job during the week, and then they just want to be themselves during the weekend. So respecting that choice, as long as your employees are giving you productive outputs, is really important. If your employees don't want to talk to you about their personal life, then that should be respected. If they do want to have a space where they want to talk about their personal lives, then you should create a space where they can come in and talk about those things. So it's a big matter of personal choice, how much a person wants to bring themselves into their work. And I think like all sorts of different choices should be respected.
Got that. I love that. So it's not just automatic assumption that everyone has to bring their full self to work and everyone wants to, but instead looking at each person, what boundaries they want to set, and the most important thing being around perhaps this idea of just respecting their boundaries, respecting how much a person wants to bring their full identity to work, and how they want to interact with others within that sort of framework and idea. So I'm going to jump into, I believe, one or maybe two more, maybe just one more question from the audience, depending on how many of you guys have an answer for this. I'm going to start off with Alondra after I read the question. But that question is, do generational differences affect your sense of belonging or other experiences at work? How do norms/expectations of Gen X and or millennials in more senior roles than you impact your work? I'm going to start off with Alondra. And once again, after Alondra speaks, if anyone has ideas, feel free to just jump in.
Definitely. I have two parents who have been working like since they were like 15, and I'm 17 and I'm able to work at an office job. But like my parents were growing up. My mom, she worked fast food. My dad, he worked so many fast food places as well. And they would tell me stories of how they were forced to stay long hours, have to go to school the next day, or they weren't respected, how customers would treat them, throwing change at them, calling them names and stuff just over innocent mistakes. And I feel like as far as my job now, that affected me because it's like I have this barrier when it comes to interacting with other people just because I don't want to get treated that way. Also, it's like I have this thing about me where I'm not easy to open up at all. I'm really shy. I'm really quiet. And, for me to sit and try to give someone a job or to interview someone, that can definitely affect that entire process because I'm trying to ask them questions and they're like, oh, she's closed off or she doesn't look comfortable doing this. So definitely that. But in my environment, I do work with older ladies as well. So they definitely reassure me that although things are different, they realize that this is a new day and age now. And they love the fact that I'm here and I'm trying to break those barriers and break those chains. Because I'm not going to lie to you, when I first stepped into my workplace, the first thing that I saw was it was just me and this other Black girl there. It didn't really have any diversity and all of those red flags from when my parents were brought up in the work environments that they had, that just popped up in my mind. And I just felt like it was going to be just like that. But it turns out it's the complete opposite.
That was a powerful anecdote. Thank you for sharing that. That was amazing. If anyone has any follow-up ideas, I'll look around, but if not, it looks like we're about to reach time. So I just want to thank the panelists. I want to thank the audience. You guys have been super interactive in the chat, and we noticed that, and that's actually really engaging and helpful and energizing for us as well. So good luck for the rest of the session and the summit. Thank you again for joining. I'm going to throw it back to Raquel.
All right, thanks so much to our moderator and to all of our panelists for setting the stage about why this topic is so important and what it means to really belong. Really appreciate you all. It was nice for me to see another Memphian. Our city is known for young workers, so I appreciate your perspective, Simon. And Octaz, you said something that really resonated with me. And that was about giving space for feedback, as well as empathy and respect. So I know as early career professionals, we receive a ton of feedback, and that feedback often pushes us to grow and be the best that we can be later on. But we also need space to innovate, to push, and to impact as we grow as well alongside mid-career professionals. So just great job to all of you. I resonated with all of your comments. Now, let's move on to our first concurrent sessions. Each of you can choose which session you'd like to attend. Make sure to head back to the event platform homepage to access the concurrent sessions. The platform link will be popping up in the chat right now. After the first concurrent session at about 2:25 Eastern time, we will have a 15-minute break. So go grab your coffee, your water, your snacks, go listen to your Beyonce. Because after that break at 2:40 Eastern, we will ask you to please jump right back into whichever session you would like to attend. And with that, enjoy the concurrent sessions. You cannot get rid of me that easily, so you will see me again when we're all ready for the closing plenary session.